and my dear students, I welcome you all, and today topic of discussion is BPH, that is benign prostatic hyperplasia. So BPH, that is benign prostatic hyperplasia. So there are two theories in support of this benign prostatic hyperplasia. The first theory is hormonal theory. So according to this, first theory is hormonal theory. So benign prostatic hyperplasia is to men compared to what fibroadenosis in females. So what happens according to hormonal theory? This theory states that there is increased production or stimulation of estrogen with the age. So as the age advances, so in old age people there is more secretion of estrogens and there is depletion of androgens. So due to that, because of the decreased stimulation of androgens and increased secretion of estrogens, that will stimulate BPH and that will stimulate prostate and will produce BPH, that is benign prostatic hyperplasia. So the increased production of estrogen and decreased level of androgens and increased production of estrogens will stimulate prostate to produce benign prostatic hyperplasia. Then according to second theory, this is neoplastic theory. According to this theory, neoplastic theory, there is hypertrophy of the all elements of the prostate. So fibrous tissue, muscular tissue, muscles, fibrous tissue, and there is hypertrophy of glands. So glandular, muscular and fibrous hypertrophy occur. So there is hypertrophy. So with the increased age in old age people, there is hypertrophy of all the elements of the prostate. There is muscular, fibrous and glandular hypertrophy. So there will be what? There will be fibro means fibrous, myo means muscles, fibromyoadenoma. So fibromyoadenoma occurs. So according to this neoplastic theory, there is hypertrophy of all the elements of prostate. So these are the theories, or we can say them as a cause. So these are the causes. Now what changes occur? There is retention of urine, there is back pressure on the bladder. So that will cause some changes. So here are changes. So the changes are within the urethra. So urethral changes. Changes because of the back pressure. So the back pressure will compress the urethra and will because of that pressure and compression, urethra will turn into the compressed longitudinal slit. So in urethral changes, urethra will turn into the long longitudinal slit. This is the changes in urethra. Urethra will turn into longitudinal slit. Now changes in bladder. So what will happen in bladder? First, there will be hypertrophy of the bladder musculature. See, this is the bladder musculature. So there will be hypertrophy of bladder musculature. Bladder musculature hypertrophy will occur. prominent muscle fibers, thick muscle fibers bundles will be seen. So these are the thick fibrous muscle fibers bundles will be seen, prominent. So this is the bladder musculature. So there will be hypertrophy of the bladder musculature, and this bundle fibers, this prominent bundle fibers are known as fasciculations. Fasciculations. And between these fasciculations there are some depressed areas. These depressed areas are known as sacculations. So between the fasciculations, the depressed area are known as sacculations. Now this sacculi are very thin layer. The sacculi are of very thin layer. So as because of the back pressure, because urine is not getting out from the bladder and there is residual urine, so because of that back pressure of the urine in the bladder, there will be hypertrophy of the bladder musculature. So fasciculations will be seen, and between these fasciculations there will be sacculations, and these sacculi are very thin layered. So because of the pressure, this sacculi will herniate or fall down. So because of that, the sacculations will herniate out. So the sacculations will herniate out and will form a diverticuli. Diverticuli. This is diverticuli is what? Herniation of the sacculi. So that will herniate. See, this will herniate out. And when this will herniate out, there will be stasis. So after the bladder musculature hypertrophy, there will be formation of fasciculations, which are prominent bundle of muscle fibers, fasciculations, and between them there is depressed area, which are sacculations. So sacculations are made, and sacculi will herniate to form diverticuli. So diverticuli are formed, and when diverticuli will form, there will be stasis. So the urine which is residual in bladder, that will get stasis. There will be obstruction and stasis, and that will lead to the stone formation, and can also infection occur. So infection can also occur, because when there is obstruction and stasis, so there the proliferation of bacteria can occur easily, and that can lead to infection. So infection and stone formation will occur. So there will be obstruction and stasis, and stone formation will occur in the diverticuli. So this is the pathogenesis, that how the back pressure of urine will cause hypertrophy of the bladder musculature, and then fasciculations will form, and between them the depressed area are sacculations, and that sacculi will herniate to form diverticuli. In diverticuli there will be stasis and obstruction that will cause further formation of stone and can lead to infection. So this is the pathology. Now clinical features of benign prostatic hyperplasia. So clinical features. So in clinical features, first there is, always remember this points, frequency, then urgency and hesitancy. There is hematuria and retention of urine. I will explain all this. So there is frequency. Why frequency? Because of inadequate emptying of the bladder. Emptying of the bladder is inadequate. So because there is residual urine and the patient is not able to pass the whole urine, so there is residual urine, there is inadequate emptying of the bladder, so that will cause frequency. So patient will go in intervals again and again for the micturition. Then urgency, because urgency occurs because there is vesicle introversion of the mucous membrane of urethra within the bladder, and this introversion of the mucous, sensitive mucous membrane of urethra within the bladder will cause stretching of the internal sphincter. So there will be stretching of internal sphincter, and there is that will avoid or lack the contraction. So patient will feel the urgency because that stretching of the internal sphincter, because of the vesicle introversion of sensitive mucous membrane of urethra within the bladder will cause 2-3 drops. So 2-3 drops will flow, and that will cause urgency. So because of the flow of that few drops, patient will run. So this is how the urgency will be created. Then hesitancy, patient will be hesitate to pass urine. Then hematuria is because of the congestion of venous plexus. So congestion of the venous plexus of the prostate will cause hyperemia and hematuria. Then there will be retention of urine. There could be acute and chronic retention of urine, and in sometimes patient may come with no pain. So in many cases there is no pain with the chronic retention of urine and with so much enlargement of prostate. Now complications. In complications, as we have discussed earlier also, there could be hematuria, and chronic retention will cause diverticuli forming. So diverticuli will form, and that will cause formation of stone. Infection can occur, and in long-standing cases there could be renal failure. So renal failure can occur. This is the biggest complication if renal failure occurs. Now investigations. In investigations, we will go for the rectal examination. Why rectal examination? I will explain. So what happens in rectal examination? There will be, when during the rectal examination, the enlarged lobe, especially the lateral lobe, enlarged lateral lobe will be felt, and there will be filtration of the rectal mucus. So in the normal cases, during the rectal examination, the rectal mucus is free, but here the rectal mucus will not move. So rectal mucus will not move because of the infiltration of the rectal mucus in cases like benign prostatic hyperplasia or in the case like cancer of prostate. So in this both condition there is infiltration within the rectum. So the rectal mucosa will not move, it is not free, and in normal cases it is free, and there is during the rectal examination a lateral lobe is felt. So in rectal examination, lateral lobe is felt. Now there will be enlarged lateral lobe. I forget to mention in changes. In changes we have discussed that urethra will turn into longitudinal slit. In bladder there will be formation of fasciculations, saculations, and there will be hypertrophy of bladder musculature. But I forget to mention that there is lobes enlargement. Both lateral and medial lobes will enlarge because of the involvement of submucous and subcervical glands. So that's why the lateral lobe is fed during the rectal examination, because of the involvement of submucous and subcervical gland, the lateral lobe and medial lobe will be enlarged. Then we will go for uroflowmetry. This is very important investigation, uroflowmetry. So in uroflowmetry, the flow of the urine is acid. So flow of the urine is absorbed and assessed during this investigation, uroflowmetry. So patient is asked to void the urine and then the flow is assessed. So the normal peak flow is 20 ml per second. So less than this is indicates that there is some problem inside in the bladder. So we will do uroflowmetry, then cystoscopy, then we will do IVP, that is intravenous pyelogram, to assess the renal changes. Then there will be increased blood urea and creatinine. So the increased blood urea and creatinine indicates that there are some defects and pathological processes are going inside in the kidney. So if the blood urea and creatinine are increased. So yes, ultrasonogram. Also we will do ultrasonogram. So it is also very essential investigation in case of benign prostatic hyperplasia. Ultrasonogram will detect the size, the weight of the bladder, and also will check the residual fluid, the fluid which is been left in the bladder and not getting out. So we will do the investigations, rectal examination where the lateral lobe is fed and rectal mucosa will not move. Uroflowmetry will assess the flow of urine. The normal peak flow is 20 ml per second. Then we will do cystoscopy, intravenous pyelogram. Blood urea and creatinine are increased. That indicates that there are some pathological changes going inside the kidney. Then in treatment, we will give the alpha adrenergic blockers. So that will relax the internal sphincter and will help in the proper drainage of the bladder or the proper emptying of the bladder. So we will give alpha adrenergic blockers, and if the patient is having chronic retention or acute retention, so if there is 200 ml urine in bladder, that is too much quantity of urine, and if there are other complications like hematuria, hydronephrosis, hydroureter, that are the changes in kidney and ureter. So I forget to mention that beside the changes in urethra will turn into longitudinal slit because of the compression, and there will be formation of fasciculations because of the hypertrophy of bladder musculature. In kidney there will be hydronephrosis, and in ureter there will be hydroureter. So there will be hydroureter or hydronephrosis. So these are the complications, hematuria, and if there is 200 ml urine in the bladder, so we go for the surgery. So in these conditions we will go for the surgery. Otherwise, in simple cases, we will explain and convince patient to don't get hesitate, and just whenever you wish to go for urine, you just go, because it is very dangerous. So in these conditions we will go for surgery. Now in surgical processes there are three processes. First is what? Through the extraperitoneal approach, we will open the bladder. Okay. Through the extraperitoneal approach, we will open the bladder, then we will introduce the Foley's catheter and we will empty the bladder. This is transvesical suprapubic prostatectomy. Then in second, that is retropubic prostatectomy. We will not open the bladder, but through the extraperitoneal approach, we will not open the bladder, but we will shift the bladder and we will excise the prostate. So we will excise the prostate gland. So we will excise the prostate gland in retropubic prostatectomy. We will not open the bladder. But in transvesical suprapubic prostatectomy, we will open the bladder through extraperitoneal approach and we will empty the bladder through the Foley's catheter. Then the third way is transurethral resection of bladder, of prostate. So transurethral resection of prostate. So what we will do here, we will introduce a instrument into the penis. So we will introduce the instrument that is known as resectoscope. So resectoscope is introduced via the penis into the urethra, and then we will irrigate the prostatic tissue with the help of water and glycine. So we will trim the excess prostatic tissue that is causing blockage of the urine. So after this procedure, patient will feel better and there will be proper emptying of the bladder.